Okay, the fourth tip that I want to give you as well is I want to tell you that the age of the domain name matters. And we're into the search engine optimization world and how the search engines look at things and what they care about as far as your website is concerned. But the age of the domain name matters. So in the search engine world, a new domain name is not going to do as well as an old domain name. Now, there are a couple ways that you can get that. One, you can get a time machine and go back into the past and buy your domain name years ago. Yeah, right. Well, we can't do that. Okay. But we sort of can think about it. Sometimes you can just sort of luck into it. A while back, I bought a domain name, and someone else had it, and it went back on the market, and I snapped it right up. Not on purpose. I should have done it on purpose. It was a great domain name. It just happened to come up, and I happened to nab it just as it came up. And so when I got it, I got the age of the domain name back that the other person had used. And so when you look up in the search engines and things, it says, oh, this domain name's 11 years old. Well, I've only owned it for, 6 months, 8 months, but I get the credit for the person that registered it before me because it's been out there on the internet and it didn't reset itself when it was put back into it. Okay, so you can watch for those domain names, and as they come back around, you can snap them up and pick up an older domain name. This isn't critical, but it can help you with your search engine optimization. Okay, another thing that you can do is domain names do go for sale, and I've bought domain names. And you can pay anywhere from a few $100 to a few $1,000s for a domain name. And to get a good domain name, you may have to weigh that out and see if you think that it's worth it. But the age of the domain name matters, and so you should at least think about that when you're registering. It's not a critical thing, but it can help you, and it's something that you should at least think about. I get people who have a domain name, and as I go through this lesson, they think about especially when I go into step 5 talking about keywords, and they didn't, and so now they think, oh well, now I'm going to go get a new name and put keywords into it, and so you have to go, oh, let's think about this for a second. I'm going to lose my age, but I'm going to get some keywords into it. So because you didn't do it right the first time, you're going to have to trade off. Then you're going to have to think about that really hard and kind of weigh that out. Because it may not be the best thing to do to trash an old domain name and buy a new one just so you can get keywords into it. Okay, and so I sort of got this out of sequence here, but the step number 5 is to use keywords in your domain name, and that can help you in search engine optimization. If you've got the keyword in the name, then when the search engines spider your site, they're going to go, wow, the keyword's in the name, so this site probably is about whatever the keyword is, okay? If it's about cat food and the cat food is in the domain name, the search engine's going to give you a lot higher relevance because there's a pretty good chance that your website's about cat food, okay? So you can use keywords in your website, and think about that as well. That ties back to branding versus descriptive. People would know what you're doing if you've got some keywords in your website. So that's sort of a thing. Again, another thing you're going to have to weigh. Do you want your company name, Bill's Enterprises, or do you want whatever the products are, greatboatengines.com? Which one's going to do you the best? And you may need to weigh that out. And actually, you can buy both, and there's some trade-offs to that as well. But you can point multiple domain names at a website. You may get some from a search engine standpoint. You may get some minus points if you point them to the same page. But if you created landing pages for each of the different keywords so that they're different pages, you can get away with that. So, okay. Another thing that you can do in creating your domain name, and this is number 6, domain tip number 6, you can use numbers and hyphens. And I'm going to kind of throw into this one as well. There are some I don't know what I would label them as, cutesy things you can do as well. Okay. So first, let's talk about numbers and hyphens, and then we'll talk about cutesy things you can do. Okay, so you can insert numbers. Here are two examples of domain names that I have. Launch, the number 2, success, and I guess you could categorize that as cutesy too, because I'm using the number 2 instead of the word TO. So I'm substituting a word. So that's sort of a cutesy thing, even though I'm using a number. Launch to success. And so when I tell somebody about that website, I have to say, hey, go visit my website. It's launch2success.com. Launch, the number 2, success.com. And haven't had any problem doing that. But that's the domain name, actually, that I was talking about that I picked up that's really old that I happened to just luck into and picked it up and got the age out of it, okay? So I like that domain name personally, but I'm using a number, and that works well as for a domain name for me. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can use a hyphen in your domain name. And sometimes if someone's got one close to you and you just can't quite get it, you can stick a hyphen in there. Again, you got to kind of go through the same rigmarole when you tell somebody about your domain name, but it's easy-nettools.com. And so, you know, when I tell somebody to go visit my website, I have to say, hey, go visit my website. It's easy-nettools.com. And since I'm using a Z and not E-Z-E-A-S-Y, I always have to say the letter Z dash nettools.com, so that they know how to do it because they're getting the right things in there. And I guess that one sort of fits into the cutesy thing as well. I'm using a letter, so instead of spelling out E-A-S-Y, I'm using E-Z. And there are a number of those cutesy things that you can do as well. I mean, you know, instead of using Y-O-U, you can use the number, or the letter U. So flowers for you. You could do that. That's sort of a cutesy thing. You would probably be crazy to do it, but you could do flowers for you and spell you instead of Y-O-U. You could spell it E-W-E, like a sheep. But I don't know what sheep want to buy flowers. But you can come up with cutesy things that you can, you know, use other letters in the names and things. I think that gives you the idea of cutesy things. It's kind of like creating license plates for cars, you know. Sometimes you look at the license plates on the car, you know, you're sitting there and the light's red and you don't have anything better to do, and the car right in front of you has this license plate that has some custom text on it, and you're sitting there scratching your brain. What the heck does that say? And you're, you know, trying to solve the puzzle. So if you're going to do cutesy thing, make sure that it's easy. Back to the easy thing. Make sure it's easy to figure out, that it's not a puzzle that somebody has to sit there and scratch their head to sort out. Keep it simple. Keep it short. You know, if you want to do cutesy, that's great, but keep it simple. Keep it short. So, but you can use hyphens and numbers. Other than that, you can't use any other special characters. You can't use anything else in there. So those are really, I think, essentially the only two that you really want to think about. Okay. Tip number 7. Let's talk about tip number 7. Tip number 7 is that you can use subdomains. Okay. If you look at my example down here, we've got betterbooks.com. Now, www is typically what you see, so it would be www.betterbooks.com. But you also have the capability to change that. It doesn't have to be www. It can be something else, and you can make that up, okay? Now, back to the reason that I explained all that junk to you about registrars and all that kind of stuff. This is another place where that fits in, okay? When you register a domain name, like betterbooks.com, you would have to register betterbooks.com. The registrar does not care what subdomains you put in front of it, okay? Whether it's www, whether it's fiction, whether it's the cow jumps over the moon, they don't care, okay? They only care about the betterbooks.com part, Okay, so if you want to use a subdomain like this, you do not contact the registrar and you do not register that with the registrar. That can be done with whoever's doing your domain name server, your hosting company. So you can register a domain name and you can put all kinds of other things out there. Now here is back to putting the keywords in your domain name. This is one way that you can do it, and there's another way you can do it as well. I'll talk about that in a minute. And there's people both ways that think which one is best, okay? But you could put, if I was going for the keyword fiction, okay, I could make my domain name fiction.betterbooks.com. Now I've got the keyword books and fiction in my domain name, so I'm going to score lots of points, right, for those two domain names, for those two keywords, okay? So all you have to do is go to whoever your hosting company is, and you can use those, and you can, some companies charge, some don't, but you do that with the hosting company, not with the registrar. And you can work your keywords into your name that way. Now, if you've got an old domain name, that's great because you don't have to get rid of it and lose the age and get a new domain name to get the words in there. Plus, it's going to give you more mileage for having the keywords in there. Now, again, you don't want to have these all probably pointed at the same page, which you could, but then the search engines are going to say, oh, you're spamming, because to them every one looks like a different site, and they're going to say you copied your site multiple times. But you can build landing pages, and you can create subdomains like this to point at other landing pages, or you could use this for your primary domain if you want to, but just avoid having too many domain names pointing at the same actual website. Okay, so this is something that you can do, and that can work very well for you in your marketing and in your search engine optimization as well. Okay, another thing, the tip number 8, which is sort of our last tip that we do a lot, and that is upper and lowercase don't matter. When you type it into the address bar, it makes everything lowercase behind the scenes, and you don't see it. So it doesn't matter. You don't register upper and lowercase. It doesn't matter. Whether you type it in upper and lowercase doesn't matter. It's going to push everything lowercase. Okay, but you can take advantage of this from a marketing perspective, because if I put up there Better Books all lowercase, okay, I've got 2 words in there, Better Books. Okay, that's 2 words. By using the case, it makes it look like 2 words, so it stands out. So we're back to our license plate kind of a thing, If I had just betterbooks.com and you don't know where the space is, your mind has to kind of go, blip, 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 where's the space supposed to be? Okay. Whereas if I use upper and lower case like this, when I print it out, when I print it on my business cards, when I put it in my email and send it to people, it helps their brain, makes it easy for their brain to figure out where the spaces are supposed to be in between the words. Okay. And so people who read it probably won't even notice it. You probably won't even notice it, but it just makes it easier. So it's really back to part of the, one of the earlier steps to keep it simple. And this is a way to sort of subliminally make it easier to do. And you can do it this way. Like say, if you type it in lowercase, uppercase, it doesn't matter. But from an advertising and marketing perspective, when you mail it out and you print it on things, I personally think it's a good thing to use uppercase to kind of show where the words separate. So that will help you in your marketing a little bit. And it's nice to know that if you type it upper and lowercase when you're typing it in, it really doesn't matter.